Hey, it's Old Dude here. It's been about 6 months with the Gevi, so I'm gonna do a little bit of an update. Came time for a cleaning and found a little water leak. So all in all, this thing's been really good. You have to clean it every couple of months, once a month, whatever it is. But anyway, got to clean it up, so it's time for that. But I noticed there's a water leak. See all this hard water right here? It must be coming out, so I'm gonna figure that out. I got it unplugged, turned it off last night. And so all the ice is out of it. I'm gonna pull it off and take it apart and figure out what's going on there. Full disclosure, my wife told me it was leaking a couple weeks ago and I was just too busy to get to it. So time to get to it today. Yeah, I almost forgot. The first thing you gotta do is drain the rest of the water out of the thing. So you take those two little hoses and let that run out. So the ice and turning it off isn't all of it. Let that drain out. And then we'll be good to take the back off and the top off and the sides off. And if you want any of that, you have to watch the other video, but that's the next step. So after moving it, it's kind of easy to see that some of that's probably from just ice that got left out. Something's happening. It looks to me like it's right in here somewhere running to the back. So we'll figure it out when we get inside. Okay, so I've got the ice maker all broken down into its separate parts. Took the side off, the top off, and the back off. Not necessarily in that order. Then you can see here where there's some water right in there. Kind of hard water deposits where the water's leaked. Some right there. It's kind of harder to see, but there's some back up in there on that second story. You can see it back down. See that or not, but there's some down there. So what's happening is, here's what I think is happening. I think it's leaking somehow right up around here. I don't know, maybe condensation. You can kind of see that this yellow crusty, whatever that is, wasn't there before. So it's something. There's some more of it right here. I don't know where you can see it. That's just a mineral deposit. And it's wet. You can see it on my fingers. So somehow it's leaking out up here, and I don't know how. Maybe I did it when I took it apart. Maybe it's just a way it works, but I think it's leaking out up here somehow. And it's coming down into here. Coming down to that second story. And then running down, because there's the pump I replaced. And you can see there's not any around it. There's nothing, really no water underneath it. No water underneath these lines right here. It's coming. I really believe it's coming from right here. So I'm gonna watch it. I've got it running. I've got the ice maker actually running right now and I'm watching. But this right here is interesting because that's not this thing right there. What is that? What is that mineral deposit that's coming out there? So anyway, we'll come back here in a couple hours and report what I find. I don't know about that. I did take this out when I fixed it. I pulled this whole thing out and didn't move that forward. I could have messed up in there. The ice is made back here in this little cylindrical, it's like a revolver, and it drops and falls into here. So you can see it running right now. It's running water. It's already, so do this. You can see the water running in back there. And you can see, this is why you see that kind of a scum that builds up. That's why you have to clean them. It's not a maintenance-free device, right? So once a month you got to run cleaning solution, vinegar, something through it. And that's what I'm doing. But you can kind of see it in there. And what's it do? Water running. And it could be leaking. So you can see that seam right there. That's the inside of this seam. It could be running out of there. I'm gonna see if we get water right here. And now, about an hour later. And you see that water? It's running right there. And it's dripping down. Right into there. Now I gotta figure out where it's coming from. Okay, I've removed these 3 screws from the top of this, the ice maker, the bullet, basically. Okay, how am I? That slides out. There's where the ice is made. There's water. There's water down in every one of these little holes. So that's where it's, I wonder how much it squirts up out of here. But this is the revolver cylinder I was talking about. The ice gets frozen, comes up here, pushed out, falls down in there. But right now the water's running up before it's freezing, and it's running down this chute. That chute's inside the hopper, and the water is getting somehow in between this seam and this seam, because there's nothing that really makes it a seam. So I got to figure out how to get, because from what I can tell, the water's coming out of this seam back about right here. Okay, now I have moved, I've actually just taken this, what is this thing? Blue light? It kills the germs. What, UV light tank, and I've just loosened it and I'm sliding it back a little bit. But now you can really see what's going on. You see that water dripping right there. Where? And it's still dripping. Why? The thing's not on, there's no pressure, but there's still water coming out of the top of the tank, and I don't understand that. What I was trying to do is look down through there. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure that out. Okay, now it's dripping water. Water through the revolver. I don't know what you call that, cylinder. Constantly freezes it, and that knife blade cuts it, and the pressure pushes the next one. But why is there water way up here? Because there's water in each one of these holes. And I have water dripping right up in there, which I don't anymore. What did I do different? I haven't changed anything. There's no more water leaking. I honestly didn't change anything. I moved these wires back a little bit because they were wicking, the water was wicking down those wires. Then you can see a little bit of that water right here. See, it's down here on this second story like I talked about. Oh, actually quite a bit. But I don't know why. Because right now, there's nothing dripping anymore. It's hard to show you that. It runs down this little tray right here. And these two holes, when it hits that one, I think it's running back and somehow getting on top here and running off the back. Although it's not anymore. Maybe when I put it back together last time, those wires were underneath there somehow, holding it up, keeping it from being tipped far enough forward. Maybe the machine wasn't level. If it was tipped back a little bit, it would run, instead of running off the front of this thing, it would run kind of back, fall through those holes and run to the back. So that's something to think about. Well, I think I figured out the water leak. It's still running. It's actually on clean mode. I'm letting it just cycle water constantly with a little bit of cleaning solution in it. It needs that anyway. And see, there is a little bit of water, looks like now, dripping. So, but I think I figured out the leak. That looks dry. If I run that, see how that's wet? See that wick water? It's coming out right here. So it's both sides. So it's actually, yeah, I'm gonna try something. It's coming out where the water, there's no water up here. It just runs here and falls into this reservoir, this ice bucket. But it's leaking out right here under this black part, I'm pretty sure. This black piece, where this white and black piece come together. I'm gonna see if I can't fix that. What it was is back when it was in there, those two wires were touching. And all it took was just those wires to be touching right in there, and it pulled the water. It allowed it to wick. I can't. I'm gonna get it to do it with that knife. Yeah, there it goes. See it? Now that it's wicking through the knife. That's all it took. I think the problem is there's. It looks to me like there's styrofoam. See that white styrofoam? I bet it's just waterlogged. Okay, so I was running it for the cleaning, and you can kind of see the water wicking. I just stuck that paper towel up there. It pulls the water from between that seam, and it drains to its lowest point, fills the beaker, and it's about a half a cup from one cleaning cycle. So yeah, this thing was leaking pretty good. My wife wasn't wrong. So I'll try to figure out a way to get this top off if I can. I don't know if it's possible, but we're gonna find out. So the first thing you have to do is remove the UV tank and the electronic box, disconnecting the electronic lines from that box so they're out of the way. Now I will say the inside of this UV tank was shocking. It was really disgustingly dirty. So probably helps to take this apart and clean it every now and then. Disconnecting the electronics is pretty simple. They're all color coded. You can see they're purple and orange and red and white, so that's easy enough. But they have these little white tabs that you have to get off first. And these little white tabs are kind of a pain. You just kind of pinch them between your fingers and wiggle them back and forth, and they'll pull out. And then there's one more clip that you have to push down while you disconnect the electronics. Now this unit actually comes off easier than I thought. There's the 4 bolts, and once you take those loose, you can just wiggle it. There's an O-ring around that cylinder that holds it all down, but you just wiggle it and it'll come off. So here I just removed the ice chute and then the foam, the styrofoam insulator that goes around it. This is the part that chills and turns it into ice, and then inside that revolver there's knife blades that slice it into chunks. So it basically creates a tube of ice, and it just cuts them into like 1/2-inch bullets. Now these bolts are rusting, and I don't know why they're not stainless, a really good quality stainless, but they shouldn't be rusting. I don't think there should be water in the holes. But maybe that got there when I moved it one time, and maybe it's condensate. I just don't know. Once the wires are loose and the 4 bolts are loose, this black part just lifts off, and there's a piece of styrofoam underneath it. You do have to be careful with the black wire, which is the door sensing wire, as it feeds through a hole in this black top. And here you can see the styrofoam, and maybe you can see that the water is just setting in that white tray. You can definitely see that the bolts, there's 4 more bolts that hold the white piece down. You can definitely see that those 4 bolts are rusting as well, because there's just been water setting in here in this pocket, and it fills up and it overflows between the black and the white piece. So that's where the water's coming from. Now here you can see the 4 bolts that hold the white piece down that has the door latch mechanism that recognizes the door is gone, and it's also where the water's leaking. But the water's sitting in this little tray, and there's my little helper. He's helping me out here. He loves working with old dude. But you take that out. I took it apart and dried it all off for this time. There's water in between these seams too. So now here I've just mocked it all back together. I've kind of put it back together, and I'm letting it run, and I'm looking to see where the water's coming from. So there's water running, and it's running over, and it's not leaking. There's no water ever gets in this white tray. So that was an interesting thing for me. That meant that as it sits right here, it never leaked. So after that trial, I actually put it all together completely so I could see it, and I let it continue to run, and I just watched it to see if it would leak. And honestly, water never showed up in that seam. So at this point in time, I thought, well, it was just something I did when I rebuilt it. I didn't have it together properly. Oh yeah, one note, make sure you get the UV tank put in there properly. I learned from experience it will get water everywhere if you don't. So this is the morning after. I had put it all back together, tested it, was working good. I'm just checking to see if it's going to leak again, because this is a weird thing. So I've got some cleaning solution in there, and I'm just letting it run through the works. You can see it's coming out of the UV tank, it's coming out of the bullet tank, kind of hard to see that, but it is. And it's dripping down in there. And that's kind of funny because there's a little bit of rusty looking stuff right there that I didn't think was there. I didn't see that yesterday, so but you can see the water's running. And what I want to see is if no water coming out of down there that I can see. Of course, before it was wicking off those two lines. I'm gonna check this seam right here and see if I end up with water. Right now, there is some water. See it right there? Yeah, there's water. It's already coming out. I can see it. So it's leaking. So something about the way this is done with this black top on there causes the water to leak and get between the black top and the white. So I'm gonna have to figure out something about that. I think it's this, maybe over time, this thing has changed shape, or this top has changed shape, and the water's wicking. It doesn't stick down in there very far, and it just wicks and gets up underneath there and somehow comes out into this, because I bet you now when I take this top apart, there's water back under this black top, and there's no reason for that. Okay, so now you can see that if I put this dry towel and I stick it right there, see that water wicking into that towel? Okay, it shouldn't do that. There's water. That means there's water underneath this black top. Okay, so here's what I've decided. The water's not coming from this side because there's a nice little silicone O-ring right here that goes in that groove that seals around the bottom of this thing. And if it was leaking over here, the water would be all over this, whatever this freezer part is, this bullet tube. So it's not there, it's at this end, and it's not leaking as much under here because there's very little water that shows up under here. So it's going, but this little tray is basically filling up, and I think it spills over or goes through these screw holes where the screws, you can tell they're rusting. Should have been stainless steel, but they're rusting. And then it comes out and weeps out here or here. So what I think is happening is when I tested it with this thing sitting here like this, all of that together, bolted down, and ran water, nothing leaked. This thing never got water. I put the black piece on there and tested it, and it ended up full of water and running out again. So my thought is, this thing may be a little bowed, and you see when I push down on it, it changes back here, and I think the water, okay, anyway, bottom line is, I don't think this piece is long enough because it barely gets down. It ends about where this starts. And that's the same place that seal is. And I think it's coming in here when water runs and running over the top of this because the step is on this side instead of that side. So it runs over and fills this up until it runs out here or over the edge. So my idea is, I'm not gonna be able to do this tonight. I'm gonna take some, I gotta order some food quality silicone. And number one, I'm gonna silicone this down. Just a nice little bead of silicone all around there. So water can't drain, if it gets in there, it doesn't drain back into the hopper. And then I'm gonna do the same thing around this black piece, right? So it sits up here like this. And I'm thinking I'm gonna silicone it around right here. And that should do it, because this is where the water's coming from. You see they got silicone here on these eyes that watch the ice drop. But if I silicone this, there's water can't come from anywhere else. It doesn't get on top up here. There's no water on top. The water's only on this tray and coming out the sides. So again, if I'm siliconing around this, the water shouldn't be able to get outside here. It should fall straight down that's what I'm gonna do. It's gonna take me a day or two to get the silicone in though. Well, I'm back to working on this Gevi ice maker. I got my food quality silicone here, so what I'm gonna do is create a seal between this piece right here and this piece right here. So just put a little bit of silicone around that. I don't care so much about this piece. I don't care about this piece sealing because that's internal. But all the way around this edge, I want to keep the water from running over into this and spilling out and down the side of it, just wicking out. So we're gonna try, I don't know why they didn't do that to start with other than just make it easier to take apart. So yeah, okay, here we go. FDA approved, so I don't know the difference actually between regular silicone and FDA approved silicone, but this does not take a lot of silicone, just a small little 16th inch bead all the way around on the inside and just covered all the way around, and then I went around the bolt holes as well just to make sure that water didn't get around them and make them any worse than they already are. Okay, so get that glued down with silicone around there. We've got I'm gonna look around the inside of this right here. I don't see any silicone sticking out, but there's silicone all around that edge, so that should keep it from coming out. In an effort to keep this video under 30 minutes, I'm going to fast track some of these, speed them up a little bit, and narrate over the parts that I think are important that you need to know. So here all I'm doing is putting the silicone around that, I guess the ice drop chute is where this goes in. And I'm only doing it around the outside of this because I want this white piece to seal against that black piece with that foam in between them. Now, funny enough, putting the foam on there was one of the harder pieces because it fits tight around that chute and it tends to try to wipe the silicone off that that outline. So I had to put a little bit more back on there. The foam is only goes in one way. It's got those little cutouts where those eyes go on the black piece. So pay attention to that. In other words, don't put it on upside down. And once I had the foam in, I went back and kind of redressed some of the silicone that I had marked out. And then it's a matter of feeding the wire up through the hole in the black part and just getting it set down on there straight. Putting the screws back down and hit the 4 screws, and then I used just a paper towel to wipe the silicone that squeezed out from in between the two while it's still wet. Make sure you get it all off there. It should seal up on the inside just fine. You do want to make sure you get all this silicone off. You don't want anywhere that could catch water and then cause like mold to develop up in there. So just make sure it's all cleaned off. It'll seal up in the backside in that groove. So now all that's left is to put the device all back together. Screwing down the UV tank, screwing down the electrical box, routing the wires, plugging the wires in, getting the ice drop chute back in place with its O-ring. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of that because it's pretty basic stuff. I think everybody probably understands how to do that if you took it apart. The one thing I would caution you on again is that UV tank has a little outlet that has to fit over inside of that ice drop chute, and if you miss that, it will leak water all down the inside again. Okay, so now we got it full of water. Get it plugged in. Pull the water down into the system, so it's pulling water down now. Okay, this is the second clean cycle of the test to see if we get water coming out of these seams. This seam, no water from the first one, and no water from the second one. So I believe we fixed it. If you remember, it only took one cleaning for water to start showing up here. and it showed up really quickly. So I think I've fixed it. This is the second go around with cleaning. I think we got it. I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest back together. I've got to put these little white things on. Oh, I don't need to. Those things are really for, I think, traveling when it's coming across, getting shipped over here from China after it's built. These things they have a hook. They have one set, so it's not like a car. It's just sitting on the counter running. It's not going to be shaking and vibrating, nothing. But I'll go ahead and put the little white things back on. Button this up. I need to put this back on. And these screws right here, these two, tie wrap all these together where they're good. And then we'll start making ice in the meanwhile. And if you're looking for a detailed how-to on how to put this thing all back together, I have another video I did when I actually replaced the water pump at the very bottom of the reservoir that talks about how this all goes back together. It's pretty straightforward. If you can run a screwdriver, it's pretty much easy to do. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. Well, this is day one after the fix. Excuse me, a little bit under the weather, but no water leaking anywhere. Everything's dry, so that's a plus. It's been running all night. Got a full tank of ice and water, and it has not leaked out yet. So we'll move it back in there where it goes. But I think we fixed it. Hey, thanks for hanging out this far along. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this video and it helps you to keep your ice maker running great. Hey, like and subscribe to the content that you watch here. It helps me to know what it is you want to see. Give us some comments down below. Let me know if there's any other questions you have. I hope you find the time this weekend to give somebody a hug and tell them you love them. God bless. Have a great weekend.